Now, after sitting through Ian McDermott and Mark Hamill and Warwick Davis and them all talking about doing the live action, they've all expressed that they're not able to go back and watch their own work for their own personal reasons. Since this is all, you know, voice acting and then a cartoon, are you guys able to have some kind of disconnect where you can go back and actually enjoy watching the series?
Totally.
Well, I gotta say, the series, watching the series, that is the feature films, that is a whole different experience for me. I mean, when I finally watched through 1, 2, and 3 with my daughter, and she was 11, and she's halfway through episode 3, she said, "I don't think I want to watch the rest of this year, Daddy. Maybe when I'm 12." And the reason she said that to me is because of how invested she is in these characters from having seen our show, connecting it into the features. And it invests all of the drama with so much more depth and subtlety, I think. And so she couldn't watch it anymore. And then going back and watching 4 through 6 again, for me personally, again, it's a whole different experience with knowing all these things, all the water that's under the bridge with these characters. It's really, it just feels very, very different to me, a much more substantial, dramatic experience, personally.
I mean, who would ever thought that if we said to you 15, 20 years ago that you would see Stormtroopers, but have a real sense of who was under that helmet, you know? Because now we have all these stories where D is killing himself, talking to himself over and over in a vocal booth to give you personality for all of these soldiers that are out there. And by the time you become the Empire, like it's a really sad ending for these gentlemen.
Something you said at dinner that I had never thought about. I don't know, we've just been so busy, but you know, all the kids that have watched Clone Wars now, they know Anakin Skywalker really, really well.
Yeah.
They have a great sense of who this guy is. When I was a kid and I watched New Hope, I had no clue. So when Obi-Wan says, you know, Vader betrayed and murdered your father, I was like, oh wow, that sucks for Luke.
That's terrible.
But these kids now, if you play a New Hope for your kid and he's been watching our show, that's how they find out that their hero, Anakin Skywalker, dies, because Darth Vader kills them.
And they have to hear it from an Obi-Wan who's been out of action for a while. I mean, it's
totally different for them.
Traumatizing.
Totally different. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, there are a bunch of articles out there by, I can't remember the name of the guy, but maybe you guys can look it up for me when you write your articles. Oh, yeah. And he did an article on every one of the Star Wars movies because he decided to show his kids the Star Wars movies. So they've been watching Clone Wars the whole time. And he decided to do the order. Let's get super geeky here, right? Well, he decided to go 4, 5, and then do a flashback, 1, 2, 3, and then 6. And by starting with 4 is a real good setup movie. You know, Luke gets handed a lightsaber and he waves it around before anyone ever goes into combat. And Jawas are strange, interesting creatures. Tusken Raiders are terrifying. Everything is all new, and they bring you up to speed in that movie. But that movie, coming from Clone Wars, and then sending them into The Empire Strikes Back and the spoilerific stuff that happens there, that this guy wrote in these articles was tremendously traumatizing to the kids. But then, of course, they really needed to know where it went. And then by the time you get to episode 6, and they've been through this huge journey, when you see Anakin at the end, they're just, you know, the thing that sticks with me is the kid goes, "What? Anakin's back?" And his dad's like, "Because he was good again?" "Yeah." "So he's a good guy?" "Yeah." He said, "That's my favorite part." And I'm like, well, that's the point, isn't it? You know, right there.
So one of the things that the show has done best is to reveal or expose or explore things that we've only heard of in the movies that we've never gotten to see. Is there a next big place or thing or idea that's on the horizon that we haven't heard of yet that's gonna come through?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, I think that this season we've written so many stories. We deal with a lot of the really big questions. You know, not so much this season in some ways, but you know, in future stories George has asked us to write. It's pretty compelling what we're doing. This season, though, focusing on, you know, the characters that we created in the Clone Wars. the Satines of the world, the Ahsokas of the world, pre-Vizsla, you know, Darth Maul, Hondo. We see a lot of things happen to these characters that, you know, we brought in or brought back. And I think I've mentioned there are consequences for these characters, unexpected consequences. We introduced some new characters. The planet Onderon, you know, is a big, vast new world. We go to a planet called Scipio, which is actually the home of the banking clan planet George had. So we're going to go see that planet where the mutants are and get into that. So some really interesting things that answer a lot of questions about the formation of the empire itself. A lot of what you will see, especially by the end of the season, more than ever before on our show foreshadows the creation of the empire. And you will be, by the end of the season, just like the Jedi, looking at all of this around you going, wow, we didn't quite see this coming. This has really developed more than maybe we thought it was going to. So there's a real movement by the Tarkins of the world. And I think that's pretty compelling as far as the big picture and how it connects to A New Hope and what the world we see the empire is of the future.
It's knockout too. I mean, it's really. I mean, I've only seen a fraction of it, but you know, going off of the trailer that you have seen, it's really a knockout season. I am very, very excited to see it.
They're funny. They never get to see it. For some of them, it's like, you know, the first time they saw it was last night when you guys saw it. So they record this stuff, and it's like, I just explain it all to them. Oh, this is going to be great. And it's like this, and you're here, and the bridge, and the snow, don't worry about it. It's going to look awesome. You know, and then they...
Doesn't make a damn bit of sense.
Right. And we go away, and then we do, you know, a whole bunch of other episodes, so they forget about that episode, and then when they come up to the ranch, I lock them in the theater. I'm like, just go watch this stuff. And, you know, for you guys, it's like you're literally transported. So back to your question, like, do we watch it? I think it's almost more interesting to watch because they had and sometimes they had minimal context for what it was actually going to be. So when they see it, where they understand where they were standing when they said that and who was around and how the lighting is.
Yeah, it's like a year later too since we did the performances, so you're completely disconnected from it. You know, you forget almost what we've done. But you know, as the show has developed, the great thing is the patience in the storytelling. How it started as a brighter, simpler series, and as it's gone on, things have gotten more complicated and more adult. And what's cool is that as those stories get more complicated, the show gets more visually stunning and complex, which is you know, they all could have been more impatient. They could have gone straight for these things right away, or let's do a Mortis thing in the first season or something like that. But it wouldn't have been the right call. You know, you want to know what you're doing by the time that you really get to those heavy-hitting things, and you really want to have these characters established so that the audience feels something huge when something happens to any one of them. You know, and it's that patience in storytelling is something that I admire in terms of what they do. But it's great that, you know, this guy gets to really develop a visual look that is equal to the task of telling these tremendous mini Star Wars movies.
We don't light it like animation. You know, Dave said to me many years ago, it's like we need to get Frank Miller, get it very graphic, make it look, you know, something different. And then one day George came in and had us push it even farther than before, which was really good for the look. And so because of that, I've tried to push it even more so cinematically with the influences of obviously the feature films that are out there, but movies that always influence me. I'll watch a movie, you know, I'll see Drive, the movie Drive, and then instantly it's like, I have to have that look. That scene reminds me of this scene. And we try and push it more cinematically, and it just helps with like what these guys are doing. It's like we're talking about the rest of season 5. It's like I can't just have you guys just be delivering lines to each other. It really has to be like you saw Anakin's bedroom in the clip today, and immediately I'm like, well, that is Elliot's room from E.T. It has to be like that because there's this feeling of like a little boy's room that I wanted, and it was just always having the light like bars move around Anakin's and Obi's face. It's like it's that kind of thing that just keeps the audience like you throw out the fact that you're watching animation. You're sucked into the delivery of the story because it's cinematic.
Well, and he was saying in the panel that not to underline this point just in case he gets you in trouble, but that he used some of the Mustafar matte paintings, that were used in the movie Revenge of the Sith, and he used them in this show. And the fact that you could actually get away with using those paintings in the background of our show, and it's seamless, that tells you where the visual bar has been set.
But we're still maintaining that animated edge because George was very clear with that early on, and Dave was me in the beginning that the shapes have to be hard, the paintwork always has to look like it's like dragged with a fork, and it just has this look no matter what. Sometimes when you go through the still frames, like even putting the slides together for these presentations, it's like sometimes I forget which one was a lighting concept and which one's an actual render, and that's what we really want to achieve.
And it's so exciting for us. I mean, I think there's a three-dimensionality to a vocal performance, in addition to the three-dimensional visual storytelling that goes on. And when we get to see that, as everyone here has on the big screen with proper aspect ratio, in that digital clarity, it's like that. It's such a shocking, marvelous surprise to see the full rendering of that, which is so far beyond anything that we imagine as we're playing out the scene together in the studio. I mean, we're thrilled by it just as much as anybody else.
Well, it's got to be amazing also for you guys to see like what Keith Kellogg and the animation team does with performance too, because I mean that's another aspect, I guess, to being a voice actor is that someone has to actually animate the face to do what you did. It's like some of the stuff we're talking about, like interactions between.
I got so excited seeing Gregor today.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like awesome. I remember his story. I remember what we did, but to see him, I mean, and you don't even have to know hardly anything about the guy. It's this guy. He's putting on the helmet. It's like it's very exciting. It's really exciting.
What's really fun about this entire team is every time that we visit the ranch, any of us visit the ranch, it's so apparent how motivated every member of that team is. Everyone you see in the hall, they're so motivated to make the best experience that they possibly can make. And what it really feels like for all of us, and probably for them too, that it's like as an actor, you're making one gear, and you want to make that gear really, really well. So you work really, really hard, and you're working this microscopic little piece, and then you hand it to Dave. You're like, oh, here's that gear you wanted. And then he takes it, and then he gathers, this lever and this other, this spring and these other gears, and they finally put it all together. And the fact that it all works, and that people are anticipating what other people are doing. I mean, I've seen some of the things that the animators have done for some of the stuff that I've done. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I intended. That look right there. That's it. That was what I was trying to convey vocally.
It may have been what you were conveying visually because we're sometimes videotaped.
Yeah.
And I want to say, going back to a little bit about our vocal performance, Dave is underplaying his direction.
Oh, yes.
Because he is by far the best director I've ever worked with. Because we don't get to see anything usually, unless it's ADR, which is a sentence here or there. And for me, sometimes the stage direction just makes no sense because I'm more of a visual learner. I need to see it. So I have to trust on Dave. And he's brilliant with his direction to us. And sometimes he knows us each individually. And so his direction changes depending on the person. He knows how to get the best performance out of everyone and makes it a comfortable room, a safe room, and that's not easy. And there are many people that can't make it seem as seamless and as easy as he does.
And relaxed, too. It's a very relaxed environment. I was recording some mall stuff in Montreal because I couldn't come back to LA. I was shooting Being Human. And so I was with these very experienced people at the studio, people who owned the studio within a studio. And oh yeah, we're doing Clone Wars. Oh, Clone Wars, cool. Yeah, that's that Star Wars thing. Cool. All right. And then we did a bunch of stuff, and then we were taking a break. And in the middle of it, the studio owner and the engineer came to me and said, "Hey, who's this Dave Filoni guy?" And I'm like, well, and I explained who Dave was, and he's like, we've worked on features, we've worked on video games, we've worked on television shows, we've worked with some of the top people in huge name talent. He's like, this guy's like the best we've ever worked with. In terms of what he wants, the clarity.
What are you voting for here? It's like, I won't say your character off. Is that what you guys are trying to do?
I think Maul becomes their friend. I mean, it's a twist they're not going to see coming. That's right, they start dating.
You don't have to kiss that, do you? That's why you're so quiet.
I'm safe.
All right.
Thank you, man.
So you guys, we have time for 2 more questions.
Frank Rich from Autographs. I think mostly for Dave and Sam, like anyone, as growing up with the original trilogy, there's been a few moments that were really special and nostalgic. The burglary out of Canada in the first episode, and the use of the, very powerful, the use of the blockade when it's actually running a blockade. For me, that was a huge connection. Do you have moments where you, favorite moments that tie into the original trilogy that you've done that just, that you know are going to be really just special for the older fans?
Anytime I'm behind a couple chairs and a few people inside of a cockpit, it's going in hyperspace. It's like that to me. It's like every single time that Dave and I look at each other, it's like there's no question on how to light that shot. There's no question on how to make that look. I think everyone on the team. It's like Dave made a quote that I believe as well. That he was quoting Scorsese when he said that you just need to make sure that everybody's kind of making the same movie, and if we're all making the same show, everybody on our show, it's like we're trying to actually use as much influence from the original features as possible. Like everything, the way that the Jedi cruisers are lit, everything just has. Like we've got these one shots where you're just underneath it, and you're just like, that's Star Wars. We do it all the time. I mean,
But Star Wars itself is kind of a combination of all this film lore, in some cases different countries, Kurosawa films, and a little bit of Wizard of Oz, and all these different, and I think one of the reasons that George sticks with it is that he realizes that you can do all kinds of stuff in this world. You can do noir stories, you can do fun adventure stories. I mean, as you were talking about like people in a cockpit, I'm thinking about the droid clip you guys showed,
yeah,
which is like people in a cockpit. They all happen to be droids though.
yeah.
It's a bunch of R2 units having a little adventure of their own, with all with their own personalities. But I mean, you can do all kinds of these different stories, and so you can go and not just draw from the Star Wars movies, but draw from just all kinds of film lore and bring it into Star Wars, because that's how it was created to begin with, westerns and all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's a Darth Maul Apocalypse Now poster right over there. I mean, we talked about that when we were doing it. We're like, this is a little bit of, he's kind of like Colonel Kurtz in the cave when he has the spider legs.
For me, it's anytime, you think of New Hope and Obi-Wan saying for over 1,000 generations, I think it's a peace and justice in the universe. And I think of that quote and I hear Alec Guinness and I look at our show and I see Jedi Knights, guardians of peace and justice in our show. And I think I never would have imagined when I was a boy that I would be privileged to be a part of telling that story with George Lucas. And that's when it connects for me, and that's when I go, it's a big responsibility. And that's when you know you're playing with heroes that are giants and villains that are treacherous, and all of the days of Camelot and Arthur and knights and dragons and dungeons and things that I grew up with, and we're just doing it in the most modern form possible, the most exciting way possible, and continuing a storytelling tradition that goes far beyond what we've done. And that's when I think you connect to what George was doing in A New Hope, and that's what you connect to what Joseph Campbell's always talked about. And that's what I think brings people together at a convention like this in a weekend town.
Who hasn't had a chance to ask a question? I don't think you have. You're our final question.
Sam, you talked earlier about the pressure that like Ashley and Matt are under doing Anakin and Ahsoka characters with such high fan expectations. How did you feel with that yourself and taking on such a huge fan favorite character like Darth Maul?
Take some Xanax and we just go for it. No, it's first of all, okay, there's the foundation of the show being quite good. So to a certain extent, they're not going to make you look foolish. There's that just having that assurance gives an actor a great deal of freedom. And the other part of it is just collaborating. What do we do? I mean, we just talk about it a lot.
You went crazy. You went crazy. I wanted you to be like a lunatic. deranged if you got cut in half and lived in a cave made out of half metal parts and couldn't remember who you were, and you're like, okay. And then you just start screaming, and you're all like, wow, this is gonna be awesome. I don't know if it's gonna air, but it's gonna be awesome.
Can you swear?
But for me, the best thing about that performance in the first episode was when we had you be a maniac, and then I said, there's one moment where you get to be the guy that was in episode 1. There's one moment when you look at Savage and you say, revenge. I must have revenge. And that's the direct tie to the Phantom Menace, because that's something that Maul's pretty famous for saying, so you brought it down to that moment. And it was highly effective. You did that so well. So there's more to come from you. And Clancy plays awfully great, the two of you, the screamers, you know, really, really well done.
Well, and you talked about this, so we appreciate when, I mean, actors like Sam and other new guest star actors come in, because you really raise the bar for us. And, you know, I remember the Mortis trilogy when you first came in. That's the thing, I mean, everyone continues to raise the bar, and you don't doubt yourself. You just know, okay, I gotta make this show better and better. And yeah, it is competitive.
It's fun, but it's
in a good
competitive.
way. Yeah.
Matt and Aaron went for this scene with Sam, and they were just going at it. You know, I could be more dramatic than you, bro. I could be more dramatic than you. They were just going back and forth, Anakin and the son, and it was awesome. Remember that? You guys catapulted.
Yeah, that's not what was going through my head, but
Yeah. It's a Cleveland Browns fan.
you were talking actually earlier about can you watch the episodes and insecurities as an actor and all that stuff. There's a part of that. Actually, just the other day we were in the booth and some kind of Anakin scene, and I wanted to do it again. I wanted another try at it. Dave was like, dude, we got it. It was good. It's great. Let's move on. I was like, are you sure? Are you sure? Okay, all right. So there's a little bit of that. Like, you gotta hold up to what these characters are and do the characters justice, because they're such complex and especially in Anakin's case, he's so complex, and you just want to do them justice. You want
That's
to make
the
sure
thing, you guys always want to do it so well. I'm in that privileged position where I don't have to push them. I don't have to say it's not good enough. I don't have to say, could we do it one more time? I mean, if I let them, they would perform all day because they just want to get it better and better. Corey Burton is a genius for that. And oftentimes I'll say, are you guys happy with that? And if you say no, I let you fire away one more time. And if I'm a good voice director at all, it's because I learned from under Ever Romano. I have to give it, and she's a genius of that field. So I'm fortunate to have had her be a part of my mentoring process as director. But yeah, I mean,
Because we worked with her on Avatar.
yeah, we did. Yeah,
She's
absolutely.
terrific.
All right, well, thank you so much to our panelists, and thank you guys for coming out and joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
The force is strong with Sandtroopers.com. Indeed.